Imagine an empire stretching across the entire known world. An empire built not just on roads and laws, but on a simple, brutally efficient blade of steel, the Roman Gladius. This short sword, well, it was the very instrument of their conquest. I mean, listen to this. When the historian Livy described the aftermath of a battle, he absolutely captured the sheer terror the Gladius inspired. The Macedonians, who were used to cleaner wounds from spears, were just horrified by what this thing could do. So you see, it wasn't just a weapon, it was a psychological tool. So how did this simple sword become so legendary? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into its brilliant design, the deadly tactics it made possible, and how it ultimately became the symbol of an empire that dominated for centuries. Now, you might think the story of the Gladius starts in Rome, right? Well, actually, it begins in the middle of some fierce campaigns of the Roman Republic. It starts with a weapon the Romans ran into, and were smart enough to copy, during their wars in Spain. This right here is classic Roman genius in action. See, they didn't have to invent everything themselves. They were absolute masters at spotting superior technology, adopting it, and then perfecting it for what they needed. The Spanish sword was that first crucial step. So this first version, the Hispaniensis, was a pretty versatile weapon. At over 60 centimeters, it was the longest type of gladius they ever used. It had this wasted shape, narrowing a little in the middle, which made it good for both slashing and thrusting. But as Rome's ambitions got bigger, their military needs drove a really rapid evolution of this blade. As Roman battle tactics evolved, shifting away from looser formations to that disciplined shoulder-to-shoulder combat of the legions, well, their famous sword changed right along with them. And this timeline, it shows a really clear trend. Over about 250 years, you see the sword get shorter and shorter and way more specialized. This is a weapon being honed for a very specific and very deadly purpose. This chart really visualizes that shift perfectly. You can see the length just shrinking dramatically. And the blade shape, it moves away from that all-purpose wasted design to a straight, parallel-edged blade that was optimized for one thing, thrusting. It's the evolution from a general sword to a specialized stabbing weapon, absolutely perfect for the crush of close-quarters combat. This just goes to show you the sophisticated craftsmanship that went into every single blade. This wasn't simple blacksmithing. It was a multi-step industrial process. You had to smelt it, purify it, add carbon to make steel, and then carefully heat treat it to get a weapon that was hard enough to hold an edge, but flexible enough not to shatter. Making thousands of these reliably, that was a true feat of engineering. Okay, but here's the most important insight. The real power of the Gladius wasn't just the blade itself. Not at all. It was the revolutionary system it was a part of. A system that replaced the idea of a heroic individual warrior with a disciplined, collective killing machine. And that question gets right to the heart of Roman military dominance. I mean, for most of history, reach was king. A spear should always beat a sword, right? The Roman answer wasn't a better sword. It was a better system. The answer lies in this deadly combat trio. First, a volley of heavy javelins, the pila, which were designed to punch through enemy shields and then bend, making the shield totally useless. Then, the legionary would advance behind his massive curved shield, the scudum, basically a mobile wall. And only then, with the enemy disorganized and the Roman soldier protected, did the gladius even come into play. This system is what allowed the flexible Roman cohort to dominate even the famous Macedonian phalanx. A phalanx was like a terrifying wall of spears, but only on flat ground. On any kind of uneven terrain, gaps would open up. Roman units were trained to exploit those gaps, to get inside the spear wall, and once they were in close, those long spears were useless and the gladius was absolutely unstoppable. The historian Cassius Dio described the brutal reality of it perfectly. It was a crush of bodies, basically a shoving match with shields. In that kind of environment, there's no room to swing a long weapon. The battle was won with quick, efficient, deadly stabs from behind the safety of that scudum. Because of this incredible success, the gladius became way more than a tool of war. It evolved into this potent symbol of Roman might, of their discipline, and of their imperial authority. A stunning example of this is the Sword of Tiberius. Now, this is not your standard issue weapon. This specific, beautifully decorated artifact gives us an amazing glimpse into the artistry and symbolism the Romans connected to their iconic blade. This was basically imperial propaganda you could wear on your belt. The scene on the sheath is a political statement. You have the general, Tiberius, dedicating his military victory to the Emperor Augustus. It's a message of loyalty, divine authority, and that inseparable link between military success and the stability of the whole empire. But no weapon, no matter how effective, lasts forever. As the Roman Empire itself began to change, so did its military, and eventually, the age of the gladius came to a close. The gladius was eventually replaced by the spatha. It was originally a longer sword used by the cavalry, but its rise to prominence with the infantry signaled a fundamental shift in how the Roman army was fighting. The difference is pretty clear. The spatha was significantly longer, and it was designed for slashing just as much as it was for thrusting. This change really reflected a move away from that disciplined, tight formation combat of the classic legions. They were moving towards more open-order fighting, often with troops who weren't as rigorously trained. The weapon changed because the whole system behind it was changing. So, while the spatha would eventually evolve into the knightly swords of the Middle Ages, the gladius holds its own unique place in history. From the fields of Gaul to the deserts of Judea, it was the point of the gladius, guided by the discipline of the legion, that literally forged the Roman world. Which leaves us with one final thought. Could this massive empire have been built with any other weapon? The answer isn't really about the quality of the steel. It's about the entire system of training, tactics, and ruthless efficiency that the gladius didn't just serve, but came to represent.